I never knew the bully could be my best friend until I discovered his heartbreaking secret. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The sun shone bright, casting long shadows. Laughter echoed in the schoolyard, but my heart raced. I stood by the swings, feeling the weight of stares. Josh, the bully, loomed like a storm cloud, his smirk cutting through the laughter. My hands trembled. I was just trying to survive high school. Somehow, I ended up on his radar. At home, it felt like a fortress. My dad worked late, and my mom had her own battles. I missed the warmth of family dinners, the sound of shared stories, replaced by silence. I shared my pain with Mia, my best friend, whose comforting presence was all I had. She believed I was strong. But sometimes I felt weak, so weak. One day, slumped against the locker, tears streaming down my cheeks, I saw Josh again, something flickering in his eyes, a hint of vulnerability. It was unexpected. I remembered how he always yelled at the kids who didn't fit in. I watched him argue fiercely, not just with kids, but with his own demons. There were whispers about his home life, faint echoes of tragedy. They swirled around me like smoke, igniting curiosity. Days passed, each moment dragging, while our paths crossed more frequently. We exchanged brief encounters, softening the edges of hatred. I began to notice things, peculiar details that made my stomach churn. He leaned against the wall, staring into the distance, lost. I wondered what fueled his rage. Then, one afternoon, it happened, the moment that changed everything. I found him sitting alone, tears glistening in his eyes, fingers digging into his palms. I took a step closer, my heart pounding like a war drum. "Josh." The word slipped out, light yet heavy. He shot his gaze up to meet mine, and for the first time, I didn't see anger. Just pain. It felt like a punch to my gut. "Get lost," he spat, but his voice cracked. I hesitated, taken aback by this new dimension. Was this the monster I feared? Was there more beneath the surface? My thoughts raced. Questions raced faster. How could the bully feel so lost? I looked at those dark lines under his eyes, not like the fierceness I expected, but like shadows of despair. It gnawed at me. Before I could respond, he turned away. My chest tightened. I knew I needed to unlock the door to whatever he hid. I wanted to know. I needed to understand. But would he let me? The bell rang, snapping me back to reality. I ran to class, heart hammering, but my mind was entrapped in a web of confusion. What was Josh hiding? I could feel the weight of a secret looming over us, dark and heavy. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The days that followed felt like a tumultuous ocean, wave after wave crashing against the fragile shore of my resolve. I could hardly concentrate on my studies. Each moment in the classroom was a battle, my mind often drifting back to that fleeting glimpse of vulnerability in Josh's eyes. The cracks in his facade made me yearn to learn more, to peel back layers of hurt that remained hidden beneath his bravado. Mia noticed my distraction, her brow furrowing during lunch as I absent-mindedly poked at my food. "You need to tell me what's going on," she pressed, her voice laced with concern. "You're not yourself lately." I knew she cared, but how could I explain the whirlwind of emotions stirred by a boy dressed in pain? "It's nothing, just school stress," I lied, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. But she wasn't buying it, and her looming presence only made it harder to hide. The next day, I found myself wandering through the school halls, each echo reminding me that Josh was everywhere yet nowhere at all. I was acutely aware of the subtle shifts in the air, the whispers about him, the way people glanced away when he entered the room, as if afraid his darkness would seep into their lives. That thought sent shivers down my spine. In a brief moment of bravery, I sought him out. The thought felt both exhilarating and terrifying, my heart racing as I approached the bleachers where I'd spotted him sitting alone again, this time scribbling furiously in a tattered notebook. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for whatever might transpire. "Josh," I called softly, hoping not to startle him. He looked up, surprise flickering momentarily before annoyance clouded his eyes. "What do you want?" His tone was defensive, but I caught a glimpse of uncertainty beneath his bravado. "I just wanted to talk." I shifted on my feet, suddenly aware of the weight of my own words. "You don't have to push me away." His gaze flickered to the ground, then back to me conflicted. "Why do you care?" "I'm not worth it." "That's not true," I insisted, stepping closer. "You seem," I hesitated, searching for the right words. "You seem like you're dealing with a lot." "Let me help." He scoffed, but there was no real anger behind it. Instead, confusion wrapped around us like fog. "Help?" "Look around. I'm the monster, and you're the good kid. Why would you want to get involved?" I wasn't sure how to respond. Part of me could understand the instinct to keep the distance, the fear that kindness might expose him in ways he wasn't ready for. But still, I felt drawn to him, like a moth to a flame. "Because I see you," I said, sincerity coating my every word. "You're not just the bully. I know there's more to you than that." Just then, a commotion broke through our fragile moment. A group of kids surged by, laughter spilling from them like sunlight. I watched as one of them, a star athlete, threw popcorn at Josh. "Look at the loser." A round of cruel giggles erupted, and like a reflex, Josh's face darkened. But an unexpected thing happened. As I staggered back, bracing for what I thought would be another escalation, he merely clenched his jaw and looked down at his notebook, the moment of anger slipping away as quickly as it had come. Something fragile flickered in his expression. A decision had been made. I stepped forward, my own heart clenching in response to the cruelty. "That wasn't right," I shot back at the group. Someone laughed even louder, mocking my defense. But before I could feel the heat of embarrassment or the sting of their words, I caught the lingering gaze of Josh. His eyes, until then filled with turmoil, flickered with something resembling gratitude mingled with confusion. It was a small moment, fleeting but significant, like a candle flame pushing back darkness. "I don't need your help," he muttered, but it didn't feel like a dismissal anymore. It was a challenge. "Then let me help you hold it all together," I dared, instead of tearing it apart. This time, our eyes connected and silence hung thick between us. I could see the battle within him, a tempest threatening to spill out. But just as hope sparked within me, a shadow loomed anew. The bell cried, signaling the end of the day, and in an instant, he turned away. As I walked home, my heart beat with uncertainty. This wasn't over, and as much as I longed to uncover his wounds, I was left with an unsettling feeling that we stood on the brink of something deeper but precarious and volatile. Later that night, just after I settled on my bed, my phone buzzed with a surprising notification. It was a text from an unknown number. "You don't know anything about him. Stay out of it, or you'll regret it." Goosebumps raced across my skin. Who had sent this? My heart sank. What had I unleashed? And suddenly, a truth settled heavy in my chest. I was operating in the dark, and the stakes were higher than I ever imagined. The next morning dawned with an eerie silence, a stark contrast to the chaos in my mind. I tossed and turned all night, the weight of that single text message gnawing at me like a persistent itch. As I got ready for school, each movement felt sluggish, the world outside my window appearing less vibrant. I stared into the mirror, trying to shake off the remnants of anxiety coating my thoughts like dust. Mia greeted me at our customary meeting spot with her usual bright smile, a beacon of warmth in my fog. "Hey, ready to rock the day?" she chirped, but the enthusiasm didn't spark any joy in me. I attempted a smile, but it was weak and faltering. She sensed the shift in me immediately. "What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost." "A ghost? Indeed," I muttered, trying to sound nonchalant. "Just stuff, you know?" But how could I tell her that I was caught in the crosshairs of a battle I barely understood? As we walked to class, my thoughts spiraled back to Josh, that inexplicable connection we had momentarily forget, so fragile yet so profound. I wondered if he had received the warning, if it had pushed him further into a shell rather than drawing him out to find solace. The day unfolded with an oppressive weight. In class, I struggled to pay attention, numbers dancing chaotically on a chalkboard that felt more like a digital screen of static noise. My mind often drifted to Josh, to how he must feel dealing with the jibes that clung to him like leeches, sucking away every ounce of dignity. When lunch arrived, I made my way to the bleachers, a mix of hope and trepidation bubbling in my chest. Would he be there? Would that message haunt him, or would it shatter whatever barrier stood between us? As I approached, my heart sank. The bleachers were deserted. I glanced around, searching for any sign of him, but competitive laughter echoed from a nearby field where a soccer game was underway. Just as disappointment began to seep into my bones, I felt a light tap on my shoulder. "Hey," Mia said softly, her eyes searching mine. "Hey, I was just looking for someone." I tried to play it off, but the tightness in my chest betrayed me. "Josh?" she guessed, with the kind of intuitive understanding only a true friend possesses. "Yeah, before I could explain, the bustling crowd around us shifted as a familiar figure stepped into view. Josh, his hands shoved deep into the pockets of his worn jeans, stood at the edge of the soccer field, watching the game with an intensity that was both captivating and disconcerting. I felt a sudden swell of hope, but also fear. What if that text had troubled him? What if he was ready to shut down again? As if sensing my gaze, he turned, locking eyes with me. My heart raced as I waved hesitantly. He studied me for a moment, his expression indecipherable, then turned away and headed towards the gym entrance. Frustration burned in my chest, was retreating into his fortress again. "Mia, I have to talk to him." "I can't just let this go," I said, urgency flowing through my words. "Wait, let me come with you," she urged, her eyes wide with concern and a hint of conviction. "No, I need to do this myself," I pleaded. As much as I appreciated her support, I felt this was a conversation that needed to happen between only us. With a shaky breath, I made my way to the gym, heart pounding like an echo through the hallways. The air inside was thick with the scent of sweat, and a cacophony of voices bounced off the walls. It took only moments for me to locate him. Was leaning against the far wall, debating whether to join the other boys in their practice. "Josh," I called, trying to steady the tremor in my voice. He turned, and for a split second, it felt like the world around us faded into a hushed silence. "What do you want?" His tone was flat, but there was an unmistakable tension in the air, a prelude to what we both sensed was inevitable. "I am here to talk, nothing more," I said, firming my resolve. "Please just hear me out." As if the walls around him crumbled just slightly, he pushed himself away from the wall, the skepticism clear in his gaze. "Talk about what? You think it's easy for me to just drop everything and have a sit down?" "I know it's not easy," I replied, desperation creeping into my words. "But I see you, Josh. I see you fighting so hard to push everyone away, and I want you to know you don't have to do it alone." "I get that there's pain?" he interrupted, anger flickering across his features. "You have no idea, do you?" I opened my mouth to respond, then caught myself. "Then help me understand." I took a step closer, beseeching him with my eyes. And then he did something I never expected. Without warning, he took a deep breath, his bravado cracking. "You really want to know? Fine. You want to know what I'm dealing with?" "Yes," I breathed, feeling the weight of the moment. More than anything, he looked away, his expression shifting to something more vulnerable. "You think I'm just this bully? But you have no idea what it's like, what my life is like." "I want to know," I repeated, steeling myself for his truth. He held my gaze for a long moment, uncertainty flickering like a candle in the wind. "Okay, fine. Just don't freak out." He glanced furtively around, lowering his voice. "My dad, he's not who you think. He's threatened me, threatened anyone who gets close." That text you got suddenly, the gym door swung open, interrupting us as another group of students rushed in. Their laughter and chatter filled the space, drowning out our words. In the whirl of bodies, Josh's expression hardened again, slipping back behind the safe veneer he had so carefully constructed. "Forget it," he snapped, turning on his heel, and just like that, he was gone, leaving behind a buzz of confusion and heartbreak. I stood there, frozen in place, grappling with the tsunami of information crashing against the shore of my mind. So much lay beneath the surface, Things beyond mere bullying, secrets, fears, a darkness that loomed larger than what I had anticipated, and just as I began to process it all, my phone buzzed again. Hesitantly, I checked the notification, a new message from the unknown number. I warned you to stay out of it. Now there will be consequences. My skin prickled with the chilling realization that everything was about to get much more dangerous. The following weeks felt like a tempest raging within the confines of my soul, a turmoil brought on by unrelenting whispers and unforeseen consequences. Every day, I walked the hallways of Smith High like a ghost, shadows clinging to my heels, memories of Josh's vulnerability haunting me. Each interaction with Mia became a balancing act between reassurance for her and the spiraling chaos in my heart. Josh had vanished behind impenetrable walls once again, and every attempt I made to reach him met with another rebuff. Our brief conversation hung in the air like an unresolved chord, a bitter note that echoed long after he left. My mind wouldn't let go of the weight of his truth or the revelation of his father's threats, creating a dark web of dread. On an unremarkable Thursday afternoon, I found myself in study hall, squinting at the words in my textbook that refused to make sense. Mia sat across from me, doodling absent-mindedly. The air was thick with silence, punctuated only by the whispers of students debating the upcoming cafeteria menu. "Are you okay?" she finally ventured, her voice laced with a gentle concern that tugged at my heart. I met her gaze, the familiar pang of guilt resurging. "I'm fine," I lied, but my voice cracked under the weight. "No, you're not. You're worried about Josh, aren't you?" She pressed gently, sighing. I leaned back in my chair. "It's just I don't know how to help him. He's trapped in something I can't even begin to understand, and I fear what happens if I push him too much. Maybe you shouldn't give up so easily." Mia's eyes sparkled with that stubborn fire I loved. "There's got to be a way to reach him. He needs a friend now more than ever, and you're the person who can be that." Her words lingered in the air, igniting a flicker of hope in my heart. But before I could respond, a commotion erupted at the front of the classroom. A scuffle had broken out between a few boys, and the teacher was struggling to regain control. I watched the chaos unfold with detached interest, my mind racing back to the silent, agonizing moments spent in Josh's company. Later, after classes had dissipated and the majority had gone home, I sat outside by the bleachers under the warming glow of the setting sun. The soft hum of cicadas filled the air, but I felt detached from the joyful sounds of laughter and play so nearby. It felt wrong, the happiness of others starkly contrasting my own internal storm. Just as I was about to give in to hopelessness, my phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me from my reverie. It was a new message from that same unknown number. My heart raced as I hesitated before opening it. "Meet me at the old playground after dark. I have something you need to see." An icy shiver crawled up my spine, the alarm bells ringing in my head. I glanced toward the direction of the school and back to the shadows gathering around me. Part of me wanted to dismiss it entirely and retreat into the safety of my home, where threats couldn't touch me. But another part whispered the promise of answers I was desperate for, and the thought of Josh weighed heavily on my heart. As darkness fell, I found myself standing at the head of the playground, the swings swaying gently in the evening breeze. The moon was half hidden behind clouds, casting a soft but eerie glow on the ground beneath my feet. I could feel my pulse thundering in my ears, the silence stretched thin as anticipation gripped me. Then, just as the chill of isolation began to settle inside me, a shadow emerged from the tree line. "You came." It was him, Josh. The familiar figure stepped into view, his face obscured by the low light. "I didn't think you would actually show up." "Neither did I admitted, the tremor in my voice betraying my nerves. "But there's something you need to tell me, right?" He looked around, and for a moment, I could see the boy behind the mask, the hurt still fresh in his eyes, vulnerability flickering like a candle against the surrounding darkness. "I can't go on like this, and I don't know if I can trust you." But he hesitated, and for a pause, the silence felt oppressive. In listening, I urged, feeling the tension sharpen. His jaw clenched as he took a seat on the rusty slide, his elbows resting heavily on his knees. "It's not just my father, all right? There's way more to this than a simple warning." There are people involved who will hurt you if they find out I'm talking. My stomach soured. People? Josh, what are you mixed up in? He ran a hand through his hair, his frustration palpable. I can't explain it all now. But you need to understand it's not just me who's at risk. There are things happening that are much bigger than us. Like what exactly? My eyes searched his face for some kind of clarity, but the shadows obscured his expression. Before he could answer, a loud rustling echoed from the nearby bushes, drawing our attention. Heart racing, I felt the looming threat both in the air and deep within me. Josh, we need to go, I whispered urgently, but just as we stood, figures emerged from the undergrowth, 3 of them, with menacing smiles that pierced through the dim light. Looks like we found the rat, one of them sneered, their eyes gleaming with a cruel delight. A surge of panic coursed through me, and I grabbed Josh's arm, pulling him away from the encroaching danger. Run. But as we turned, the ground beneath us shifted. My foot caught on a jagged root and I stumbled. The world blurred into chaos, my scream muffled by the shadows that engulfed us. Josh lunged to grab me, but in the commotion, we were separated. A cacophony of shouts ricocheted in the night. In a flash of darkness, everything went silent. The last thing I saw was Josh's face, a mask of fear and panic. And then I was lost in the cold embrace of night. And in that moment, I knew that everything had changed forever. The air was heavy, the silence oppressive. When my senses finally began to return, I was sprawled on the ground, the cool dampness seeping through my jeans. My heart raced as I pushed myself up on trembling arms, scanning for Josh. Josh! I shouted, desperation spilling out in a breathless rush. The echoes of my voice melted into the darkness, swallowed by the trees surrounding the old playground. The echoes of fear vibrated within me, my pulse thrumming in my Ursa beat of dread propelling me forward. I stumbled to my feet and called again, fighting back the rising tide of panic. The moon cast eerie shadows, transforming familiar shapes into grotesque forms. Where are you? Suddenly, I caught a movement from the far side of the swings. Josh emerged from the shadows, his face pale, and relief poured through me like a warm embrace. But that warm embrace quickly turned cold as I noticed the bruise forming on his cheek. They got you? My voice trembled, trailing off as I rushed to him. What happened? Just a little welcome, he said, trying to muster a smile, but the strain in his eyes betrayed any optimism he attempted to project. We need to go. Go where? You can't just leave. I was frantic, fingers trembling as I reached out to grasp his arm. They know you're talking to me. You're still not safe, exactly why we need to get out of here. He grimaced, the pain evident in every strained word. Before I could protest, he turned, leading the way back toward the main road. We hurried in silence, the weight of our fear a heavy cloak around us. I stole glances at him, my heart aching at the sight of his battered frame, the walls I desperately wanted to tear down rising higher between us. We reached the outskirts of the playground, navigating the moonlit path flanked by darkened trees. I glimpsed into the depth of the night, every shadow a potential threat, every rustle a reminder of what had just transpired. Why didn't you tell me? I blurted as we paused at the edge of the road. You could have trusted me, that's just it. He turned, eyes blazing with a mix of fear and frustration. This isn't just about trust. It's about keeping you safe. You don't understand the depth of what's happening here, then make me understand. I shot back, cheeks flushing with indignation. I'm the one who wants to help you, for God's sake. You can't shut me out like this. Not now. He looked away, fists clenched at his sides. The tension hung thick, a volley of unsaid words pulsating between us. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he sighed, the fight draining from his shoulders. There's a group of people that my father is in with, and they're dangerous. It's not just about his threats anymore. It's bigger than you or me. I'm just a pawn to them. A pawn? Josh, you're not just some game piece. You're a person. How can you let them treat you like that? I clenched my fists, anger and helplessness battling within me. I don't have a choice. He snapped back, voice wavering between anguish and frustration. I can't put you at risk, and my father won't stop until he gets what he wants. If they find out I'm trying to escape them, they'll hurt you to get to me, The words struck a nerve, truth washing over me with a chilling realization. This was something I had feared but fought to ignore. It pulled the rug from beneath every sense I had. What does he want? Before he could answer, a distant rumble of engines interrupted, shadows of two headlights piercing through the darkness like specters. My heart plummeted. We need to move. No, we can't just run blindly, he said, gripping my wrist tighter. We have to think, but as the vehicles drew nearer, a panic surged through me. The racing headlights illuminated Josh's face revealed not only fear but determination. We'll talk later. We'll find a way to beat them. With urgency coursing through me, I grabbed his hand, intertwining our fingers instinctively. I'm not going to leave you behind. Not now. He gave me a fleeting smile, a flicker of solidarity that melted my heart even as the impending danger loomed closer. Just as we turned to find a safer exit, the figure of a tall man leaped from one of the cars, embodying the very darkness we had spent our lives avoiding. The unmistakable glint of anger in his eyes sent shivers through my spine. There you two are, he sneered. Thinking you could just disappear. Everything in me went icy. Josh's grip tightened around my hand, and I felt the pull of hopelessness threatening to crush my spirit. But before I could absorb the stark reality of our predicament, the man stepped forward. His next words jolted me to my core. You think your friendship means anything in this world? You're just a means to an end. Josh's face drained of color as he stepped in front of me protectively. What do you want from us? Let's just say you're about to learn how deeply ties can bind. And how easily they can snap. The ground beneath us felt increasingly unstable as the man moved closer, a predator reveling in his prey's vulnerability. My heart raced both with fear for Josh and a burgeoning sense of dread. It felt like the beginning of a violent storm, whirling out of control. I had no idea how to save him, how to save us, as the shadows threatened to consume everything we had fought for. But his face, filled with both fear and a fierce resolve, ignited that small, flickering ember of hope buried deep within my heart. In that moment, I knew that whatever would come next, we would face it together. Even if it meant tearing down every wall we had built. Or perhaps, even learning that the greatest battles hide in the crevices of our hearts. Just before everything spiraled further, another figure emerged from the shadows, a glimmer of unexpected familiarity that had the power to change everything for us. The figure stepped into the faint glow of the headlights, and my breath hitched in my throat. It was Mia, a girl I had thought I'd left behind in the past, a distant whisper of a childhood friendship now tangled in the web of my current reality. The soul who had once lifted my spirits and filled my days with laughter, a stark contrast to this night. Mia? Josh's voice cracked, disbelief etching deep lines on his brow. What are you doing here? I whispered, torn between sweet relief and the haunting anxiety of our situation. She held up her hands, her expression serious yet soft. I came for you. Both of you. Her gaze darted to the men looming just outside the reach of the headlights, an intensity firing in her eyes that reminded me of the girl who once fought against the odds to defend me on the playground. Did you? Josh began, hesitating as if testing the water before diving in. Did you know I'd be in trouble? I had a feeling, she admitted, her voice steady despite the chaos around us. There are whispers, Josh. Whispers about your father's dealings, about you wanting to leave. I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. Before we could reply, the man's laughter sliced through the air, cold and mocking. Isn't this adorable? A little reunion before the end. His eyes locked onto Mia, his sneer now directed at her. You can't save him, sweetheart. You'll get hurt too. In her stance, I saw the shadow of the girl I'd once known as Sentinel, unafraid of the fight. I won't let you hurt them, she declared, the fire in her voice igniting a flicker of courage within me. A slight tremor ran through me as I looked between Josh and Mia, the blend of fear for Josh's safety and admiration for Mia's bravery sparking an emotional whirlwind. Why would you risk yourself for us? I asked, unable to keep the uncertainty out of my voice. Because that's what friends do, she replied, her tone shifting from defiant to tender. And because I believe in the good that's still in you, Josh. You're not just a pawn. You're strong, and you can fight this. A swell of desperation surged within me, echoing her words. We can fight this together. We are stronger together. I reached out, hoping to bridge the chasm that had formed between us since we'd been thrown into this nightmare. The man stepped forward again, undeterred by our resolute determination. Enough of this sentimental nonsense, he snapped, narrowing his eyes. You're making this harder on yourselves. You want to save him? Follow me. I can offer you a way out. Darkness masked his intentions, the offer curdling in my stomach like bad milk. What's the catch? Josh asked, his voice low but laced with defiance. Oh, just your loyalty binding, thick loyalty. Who wouldn't want that? He said, chuckling sinisterly. Or shall I show you the alternative? Mia flinched, her hands trembling at her sides. I felt a swell of protectiveness toward her, an instinct driving me to shield her from this uncertainty. No, I shouted, instinctively clutching Josh's hand tighter. We won't let you take him, or her. We'll find our own way out. Desperation settled like a heavy fog as the headlights flickered, casting uneven shadows across the ground. This wasn't merely a confrontation with a threat, it was a challenge against the chains that bound us. And beyond that, a gnawing awareness of what would become of us if we failed. As the man stepped closer, the darkness behind him pulsed like a living thing. My heart raced, taking in the volume of choices laid before you, each path leading deeper into the shadows of uncertainty. In that precarious moment, as the threat of violence loomed overhead, I felt the electric jolt of something I hadn't dared hope for. Unity. Fight with us. Mia shouted, her voice rising above the sooty despair enveloping us. Together, we're more than pawns. We're a force. Josh's eyes met mine, swirling emotions reflected within them. Here was my chance not just to rescue him, but to mend the fractures in our hearts that darkness had chipped away. Fear walked beside me, but so too walked strength, rebellion, and an undeniable connection that ran deeper than the very shadows chasing us. Just as I opened my mouth to speak again, to rally my thoughts into something coherent, a muffled explosion rent the air, sending the ground beneath our feet vibrating with raw fury. The figure vanished into the deep shadows, his form swallowed up as chaos erupted around us in bursts of blinding light and earth-shaking noise. Run! I cried, the command slipping from my lips before I could process it, instinct rising in a tidal wave. And we did us one. The moon hung full above us as we sprinted through the trees, the darkness filled with the echoing roar of our hearts, the stark realization that nothing was certain but our desperate fight to escape. But as we tore deeper into the forest, a chilling promise lingered: the enemy would strike back with fury, and whatever we were escaping from wasn't ready to let us go yet. The sharp crack of twigs behind us and a cold laugh echoed through the woods. You think this is over? Hope was our compass now, but with every cautious step, the weight of destiny bore down on us, unraveling the threads that bound our hearts. I clung tighter to Josh's hand and felt Mia's presence beside us, but the question of what lay ahead carved a rift through my resolve. We were headed straight into a storm that might consume us all, unprepared but unwilling to surrender. In this moment, everything felt painfully uncertain, and I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that our worst trials were yet to come. The forest enveloped us in shadows, the air heavy with the scent of pine and damp earth. My heart raced, pounding like a war drum, urging us onward as we broke through the thick underbrush. Twigs snapped underfoot, punctuating the silence around us with warning. We didn't dare look back. We could feel the weight of his malice pressing into our backs. Mia, I panted, trying to balance the urgency of our flight with the need to ensure she was safe. Are you okay? I'm fine, she shouted back, but there was a tremor in her voice that betrayed her composure. We need to keep moving. As long as we're together, she faltered, glancing at Josh. We'll find a way out. The weight of her words echoed in my mind together. It felt tenuous yet powerful, an unbreakable thread tying us together even in this chaos. I squeezed Josh's hand tighter, drawing strength from our connection. But the assurance of unity was marred by an unsettling thought. What if Mia's courage couldn't shield us from what lay ahead? The sounds of the night surrounded us, rustling leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, but it was the low growl of our pursuer that lingered in my mind, a dark melody to our frantic escape. I focused ahead, steering us through the dense thicket, adrenaline fueling every step. Then we stumbled upon a small clearing, moonlight spilling over us as we paused to catch our breath. My eyes darted from Josh to Mia, searching for the calm in their expressions. Despite the fear, a flicker of hope danced in my chest. "Let's rest for a moment," I suggested, even as my ears strained for any sign of danger. "We need to figure out our next move." Mia nodded, her breath coming in shallow gasps, and sat down on a fallen log. "If we can just gather ourselves, maybe we can find a place to hide or a way back to civilization," she urged, though the tremble in her voice betrayed her uncertainty. Josh remained standing, his body taut like a bowstring. "Do you think he'll give up?" he asked, the shadows under his eyes deepening. "We might have escaped, but with him out there it's not over." I felt a pang of dread slicing through me. "Then we need to confront it. We cannot keep running in fear forever." The thought of facing our opponent was both exhilarating and terrifying. The weight of responsibility pressed upon me, but deep down I knew that to reclaim our lives, we couldn't remain mere victims. Mia looked up at me, her eyes glistening under the moonlight, and for a moment, I saw the girl I remembered, a spark of hope amid the chaos. What if we expose him? Shed light on what he's doing?" she suggested, her voice gaining momentum. "But how?" Josh interjected, dragging a hand across his face. "We have no proof. No one would believe us." "Not yet, but we can find a way," I insisted, the idea taking root in my mind. "We have to believe in each other first. There's more to us than just this horror." The three of us exchanged glances, a fire igniting in our chests. United, we had to become a force beyond the manipulation of our enemy, a flicker of defiance against the impending darkness. In the midst of our determination, I felt a sudden presence at the edge of the clearing. My breath hitched as I turned my head sharply, heart racing at the unexpected noise. "Mia?" It was a boy's voice, uncertain yet familiar. "Caleb, the quiet kid from our school." He stepped out from behind a tree, eyes wide with apprehension. "I saw you guys run. I thought you needed help. What are you doing here?" Josh asked, tension plain in his voice. "You're in danger too. I know. But they're looking for you. I overheard them talking about it." "I couldn't just stand by," Caleb said, his voice steadying. My heart swelled with unexpected warmth. "You risked yourself for us?" I asked, touched beyond measure by his bravery. "I don't know," Caleb admitted, shifting nervously. "I guess I just thought some things are worth fighting for." His words resonated within me like a bell tolling for hope. Even in a world stripped of trust, there were still whispers of kindness. The realization ignited a rebellious spirit, urging us to forge on despite the overwhelming odds. As we gathered closer, sharing thoughts and plans, I noticed the air crackling with unspoken tension. The threat lingered in the distance, like a storm on the horizon. Just then, a chilling laughter echoed through the trees, unmistakably mocking, and we froze in the silence. "There you are," the voice taunted, slicing through the clarity of our moment. "Did you really think you could escape me? You should know I have eyes everywhere." The blood drained from my face as icy dread gripped my chest. "We have to move," I urged, the chilling realization settling over me like a shroud. The walls were closing in, and our fleeting moments of hope were rapidly slipping away. But just as we prepared to make a dash, a figure emerged behind me, dark and imposing, a silhouette cloaked in darkness. The moonlight revealed more than shadows. It unveiled secrets I had never seen coming. "Don't run," the figure said, and my heart plummeted as I recognized the voice. "I'm here to show you what really lies beyond this. You're not as alone as you think." With every fiber of my being, I felt wrenched from the moment, straddling the line between fight and flight, fear and courage. What secret had been kept from us? What unseen forces were at play? The revelation stood on the precipice of our lives, and I could only hope it wouldn't shove us into an abyss of despair. The air thickened, charged with tension. The shadowy figure took a step forward, and a familiar spark ignited in my chest, battling against the overwhelming dread. My throat felt dry as I processed the revelation that hung heavy in the moonlight. "Nick?" I breathed, disbelief washing over me. My once classmate, the boy who had navigated the waters of our school with arrogance and bravado, was now standing before us with an unexpected vulnerability. His eyes met my filled with something deeper than malice. "I didn't come to hurt you," he said, raising his hands in surrender. "Please, hear me out." MIA's eyes darted between us, uncertainty etched across her face. "What do you want, Nick?" she asked, her voice steady but laced with the remnants of fear. "Just to talk." "You don't realize what's happening, what I'm connected to," he said, glancing warily over his shoulder, as though expecting shadows to leap from the trees. "We don't trust you," Josh declared, stepping forward protectively, his fists clenched. "You're the last person we want to take advice from. I get it," Nick replied, his voice weary. "But I'm not just the bully you think I am. There's so much more going on that you don't know." His gaze fell on the ground, and he kicked a small stone absent-mindedly. "I was hoping I could help you if you'd let me." "Help us how?" I pressed, curiosity mingling with my instinct to flee. "Why should we trust you?" He inhaled deeply, the breath trembling in his chest. "Because I know who's chasing you and why." Those words struck a chord in all of us. Slowly, the walls of hostility surrounding Nick began to chip, revealing a glimpse of honesty buried beneath his swagger. "That man," he continued, voice lowering to a whisper, "he's my father." A collective intake of breath surrounded us. Josh stumbled backward, nearly losing his balance, while MIA's fingers twitched as she struggled to digest this shocking twist. "What?" I gasped. "You're saying he's your yeah," Nick interjected, anguish twisting his features. "And he's dangerous, like, really dangerous. I've spent years trying to distance myself from him, to prove him more than a shadow. When I saw you three running, something inside me snapped. I can't let him catch you again. How do we know this isn't a trap?" Mia asked, her voice tinged with skepticism. "Because I've been trying to gather intel on him," Nick admitted, his voice gaining urgency. "He's been involved in things that would terrify you. Drugs. Trafficking. The whole town has been in a blind spot, and I couldn't help you before, but I can now. We need each other." An unexpected warmth wrapped around my heart. Could this be genuine? A small ember of hope ignited, illuminating the fear that had consumed us for so long. I chanced a glance at Josh and Mia, their own doubt reflected in their eyes, but was tempered by an undeniable spark of curiosity. "What do you mean, things that would terrify us?" I pressed. "Not here," Nick urged, glancing nervously into the dark woods around us. "We need to move hunting, and I can't let him find you." A cacophony of emotions swirled within me, fear of the unknown, the weight of betrayal, and the possibility that we were standing on the precipice of a perilous alliance. "Okay," I said, my voice steady, fueled by the fraying threads of challenge. "Well, listen. But you have to be honest with us, Nick." "No lies," agreed, Josh added sharply. "This isn't a game. Lives are at stake. Let's go," Nick instructed, turning on his heel, his posture a blend of confidence and urgency that felt unsettling, yet oddly reassuring. As we fell in line behind him, the sounds of the woods shifted, the ominous growls from before replaced by the rustle of leaves that seemed to whisper our fears back at us. With each step, a chill clawed at my spine, not just from the danger lurking behind us, but from the uncertainty of this partnership. Subconsciously, I reached for MIA's hand, squeezing it gently. She mirrored my gesture, a silent exchange of courage in this new endeavor that felt both right and wrong. We pushed through the underbrush, every snap of twigs a reminder that the hunt was still on. With Nick leading the way, I couldn't help but feel the weight of doubt settle heavily in my gut. Just as hope began to bloom, the truth clawed at our escape, ready to strip it away. Then Nick pulled ahead, suddenly halting. "Wait," he murmured, his voice barely a whisper. "Do you hear that?" We all paused, the night air growing thicker. Our heartbeats pounded in rhythm with the whispers of the forest. A malevolent chuckle reverberated through the darkness, slithering into our minds, a chilling confirmation that our foe lurked only steps behind. "This isn't over," Nick said, his expression stark, "and we're running out of time." As the darkness pressed closer, the reality of our precarious situation enveloped us once again, sealing our fates in a game far more dangerous than anticipated. Just as I felt the weight of despair creeping back, a distant light flickered. "Do you see that?" Josh whispered, pointing at a faint glimmer through the trees. "Could it be hope? Or yet another trap laid by the evil we sought to escape?" In that moment, I realized our only option was to step forward into the unknown, together, because as twisted as the path ahead seemed, we were now tangled in a web of alliances and secrets, where trust was the rarest currency of all. We followed the wavering light, cautious and eager all at once, each footstep heavy with uncertainty. It flickered like a candle's flame, contrasting sharply against the encroaching darkness. The thrill of hope mingled with deep-seated apprehension. What awaited us beyond that ominous tangle of trees? Nick led us with a surprising steadiness, his face illuminated by the dim glow ahead. "Stay close. The last thing we want is to lose each other right now," he urged, eyes darting about as the woods seemed alive with foreboding whispers. Though his demeanor had shifted from brash arrogance to one of wary vigilance, I still wondered if betrayal lurked behind his reassuring facade. "Is it safe?" Mia asked, hesitating as low-hanging branches whipped against her skin. The fear in her voice was palpable, threading through the echoing silence like a fragile lifeline. "Safer than where we were," Nick replied, glancing back at her, the weight of his answer tinged with an emotion I couldn't quite decipher. As we crept closer to the light, its source came into Vaiwan old, deserted cabin, its windows cracked and stucco peeling. A long-forgotten structure nestled in the heart of the woods, it seemed almost too perfect, like a forgotten piece of a twisted fairy tale. A flicker of light danced inside, revealing silhouettes that moved with purpose, casting long shadows on the walls. "It's not just a cabin," Nick hissed, urgency lacing his voice. "It's a safe house. My father used this place as a hideout for those he's been after. But listen, we need to be careful. If he's here, we're walking into a trap." Every instinct in me screamed to turn back, but the pull of that light, the possibility of finding allies or even safety, was too strong to resist. "We can't just run away again," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "If there's a chance we can find answers here, we owe it to ourselves to look." "Fine," Josh muttered with a narrowed gaze, "but if this turns out to be a mistake, it's not," Nick interrupted, a hint of desperation creeping into his tone. "Trust me, please." As we stepped inside, the flickering light revealed a chaotic scene. The air was thick with dust and the scent of earth, mingling with something metallic. Scattered papers covered the floor, illuminated by the erratic glow of a couple of battery-operated lanterns, their illumination casting a ghostly pallor over the relics of the past. "Who's in here?" Mia asked softly, her body coiling with tension. I squeezed her hand again, holding my breath, my heart pounding like a war drum in my chest. "Just some friends," Nick said, attempting a half-smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. In that moment, two figures emerged from the shadows, broad-shouldered and wary. I barely recognized them until one stepped into the light, revealing familiarity framed with fear. "Nick." The other boy's voice was a shocked, gasped whisper that repeated his name like a lifeline thrown into dark waters. "You came. We thought you were." "I'm not dead yet, Alex," Nick snapped, the tension melting from his face to reveal something softer relief, mixed with a sense of belonging. "This isn't the time for jokes, right?" Alex replied, composed yet shaken, his expression flickering between anxiety and disbelief as he finally noticed us. "Who are these people?" "They're friends," Nick insisted, impatience creeping into his demeanor. "They're in danger, so we need to move quickly. This isn't a safe space for long." As they shared hurried information in whispers, Mia and I exchanged wary glances. The sight of fragmented alliances once unfathomable was somehow grounding. Could we really form new bonds with him? Suddenly, the tension shattered like glass. A loud crash echoed from outside, sending a shockwave of panic through the room. Instinctively, the four of us moved closer together, pulling ourselves into a tighter circle, the reality of our situation dawning on us with haunting clarity. Before anyone could register what was happening, Nick's face turned ghostly pale. "No, he's here," he whispered, as all the blood drained from his face. "Who?" Josh asked, teeth clenched and muscles taut. "Father," Nick squeezed out through gritted teeth. "He found us." I felt the air rush out of my lungs. In that moment of darkness, a thought clawed its way to the surface. We were no longer running from fear. We were staring at it head-on, and it was poised to strike. A crash sounded again, more frantic this time, and cold dread settled in my gut like an anchor, pulling me toward the ground. Just then, a figure burst through the door of the cabin, a silhouette carved from shadows, framed by the moonlight. You thought you could hide forever? The voice slithered through the air, dripping with malice and arrogance. You should have known better, Nicholas. In that instant, caught between allegiance and betrayal, we stood paralyzed, our choices slipping away like sand through our fingers. The reality of the choice we faced unspoled before us, stark and unforgiving, tightening its grip with every passing heartbeat. As we braced for what was to come, an unsettling thought dawned on me. Could Nick truly protect us from the monster that had created him? Would this newfound connection blossom into something unbreakable, or would it tear us all apart? In that breathless moment of impending chaos, I realized that trust was no longer a promise, but a ruthless gamble. The last hour of twilight cast shadows long and eerie across the ground, and for a moment, silence fell over the cabin. The air felt electric, charged with danger and uncertainty as shadows deepened and reality began to unfurl like a dark blossom. Don't move, the menacing figure warned, and the unmistakable weight of dread wrapped around us like a shroud. I glanced at Josh, whose face had gone pale and rigid, every muscle in his body wound tight like a coiled spring. Mia's hand slipped into mine, her grip firm, a tether against the darkness swallowing our resolve. Nick stood at the forefront, eyes locked on the figure stepping into the weak light, the tension palpable. You let me handle this, he whispered to us, urgency mingling with bravado. Handle what? Josh shot back, sarcasm tainted with fear. You've never faced him without consequences. Now's not the time, for Nick began, but the figure's taunting laughter echoed cruelly, cutting him off. So, you finally brought company into the fold, heir to my legacy, his father sneered, eyes flickering with rage as he surveyed us. It was a sickly satisfaction that curled on his lips. She fed on our fear. No, Nick said, stepping forward defiantly. You don't get to dictate who I am or what I do anymore. What a brave little pup, the man mused. Still thinking you can escape the pack? This is your family's work, Nicholas. Embrace it. Before I could think, instinct took over, and I found myself stepping in front of Josh and Mia. You can't take him. My heart thundered, words spilling forth like defiance waking from slumber. He's not yours to own. The figure turned his gaze toward me, a dark glimmer flashing in his eyes. And who are you? I'm someone who knows you're wrong. My voice wavered, then steadied under the weight of my own conviction. You've hurt him enough. No more. The room grew heavy. Every breath was strained, every heartbeat a question that lingered in the air. Fear threatened to steal my voice, but there was something deeper, urgency coursing through our veins. I could feel the bond forged through the heat of battle and pain weave through us, stronger than anything that had come before. Wait. Nick's voice cut through the uncertainty of panic, pulling us back. Listen, there's a way. You don't have to fight this. You just need to let me explain. His father's smile faded, his eyes narrowing in pure disdain. You think they'll save you? They're a liability, just like your mother. Don't you dare touch her. Nick's voice broke like a dam, unleashing everything had held back for so long. All at once, the room shifted. The glint of truth began to overpower the shadows of past grievances that had haunted all of us, Nick's father included. Enough. He barked, but something had awakened in Nick, a flash of resolve that pierced the darkness. You've painted our lives as a canvas of chaos, but I'm done being your brush. I'm not afraid anymore. The man took a step forward. You little wretch. Look at what you've wrought. I felt the rush of panic rising as he lunged. I could only think to react as I drew closer to Nick, too late to stop it. Mia leaped, breaking the tension like glass shattering, shouting, "Look out." But the darkness swept in like fog, and everything erupted into chaos as the onslaught began. A fight broke out, our hearts pounding, and every instinct to protect surged within us. Alex shouted commands, managing to pull Nick back from the fray, but the room descended into chaos. Josh, desperate and fierce, lunged at the figure with everything he had inherited from his past, the fury of a boy wronged giving him strength. And I felt myself leap forward into the madness, adrenaline coursing through my veins, the amalgamation of fear and anger igniting a fierce will to protect those I now considered family. I saw Nick's father react, the realization that our unity was a fierce weapon that they had underestimated. Even if we were trapped in a Greek tragedy, it wasn't simply a battle we faced, it was an awakening. The collective strength of hope, resilience, and newfound trust surged through us, a fragile but powerful conduit. Against the darkness. Together. I shouted, the word echoing through the fray. We fought as one. The light cut through the darkness, revealing us for what we were, a force to be reckoned with. Moments passed in elusive chaos, punches thrown, dodges made, energy melding with the thrill of desperation. Each of us shone light against the tangible darkness, refusing to buckle under the weight of the past. Then, suddenly, everything came crashing down. In a heartbeat, the figure stumbled backward, barely steadying himself as I caught sight of the glimmer of a fragile bond beneath the acrid smoke of hatred birthed from their family legacy. I saw pain reflected in the man's eyes, a family lost, haunted by fate. As he scowled at Nick, emotions flickered across his face, anger intertwined with something far deeper, betrayal not just of his son, but of himself. Dad, Nick's voice cracked, caught between the pain of a broken son and the man who had forged his very being through lies. This can change. Change? His father spat, venom coating his words. What do you know of change? You're a coward, like your mother. That hit Nick hard. His shoulders trembled under the weight of truth and anguish, but a moment of hesitation gave way to clarity. No, you're wrong. Nick's voice was steady, a quiet storm building resolve within. You chose the darkness. In bringing the light. In that moment, a crack split the suffocating tension, creating space for hope to blossom. The slightest flicker of remorse crossed his father's face, a harsh mirror to the anger that had birthed so much destruction. The room felt alive, pulsing with potential, trembling on the precipice of something profound. Nothing is set in stone, I whispered, the gentle strength of my voice buoying our chances. We can all step into the light, but you need to make the choice, too. For a heartbeat, we stood there, tension electrifying each second and tearing through us all. But in that moment, I could feel our fates intertwining. The man stared at his son, and then at us, these strangers who suddenly felt more like family. Fight for your heart. Nick continued, a litany of hope spilling forth. You can break the cycle. You can change. He hesitated, slowly stepping back, his confidence faltering under the weight of his own decisions. And then, to my astonishment, a tremor ran through him, a crack forming in the foundation of his tyranny. You're wrong, Nick'll do what needs to be done. No more. In a speed that caught us off guard, I moved, my voice clear and resolute. You've already done enough. This ends now. And together, we surged toward not only reclaim our lives, but to liberate him from the chains of his legacy. As we wrested the power from above us, I saw the flicker of vulnerability shining through the cold darkness, engulfing his heart, a heart that had long ago forgotten what it meant to choose love over hate. In the tumultuous battle that ensued, the air grew thick with the weight of honesty, all of us fighting in a delicate dance. Until he gasped, and the shadows scurried away, the battle won not just by force, but by the buried love finally breaking through the shackles that held him hostage. Then, with an unexpected surge, he stepped back, trailing fingers across his face in disbelief, complete and utter chaos around us, but a flicker of something new formed beneath the surface. You're right, he whispered, and in that moment, we knew not just lives were changed, but destinies unfolded before our very eyes. The shift was palpable, the world that had held us hostage cracking like glass, until something entirely unexpected began to emerge. Forgiveness flowed, but more importantly, it was the breath of new beginnings. The light expanded, enveloping us like a warm embrace, and as the remaining shadows dissipated, I realized we would never be the same again. Together, we had fought against more than just flesh and bone. We'd battled against the very essence of finite only for ourselves, but for a path forward, a shared journey born anew. As dawn broke and spilled through the remnants of night, illuminating our victory through newfound hope, This moment stood as the focus of our resilience. I and the serendipity of whispers, promises of tomorrow danced between us, love, forgiveness, and the clarity of heart as one unbroken family, reclaiming our truths in the glow of a new era. We are free, I breathed, catching MIA's gaze, then Josh's, and finally Nixa united front emerging from the flames. And together, we stepped into the light, knowing love was powerful enough to turn the darkest curse into a profound blessing, and the last mission of our heart-filled battle echoed in my mind. We are the change. And for the first time, I believed it. We could become anything as long as we held on to each other.